So I just got done importing my metadata from my DAT file, which is really a text file, into Microsoft Excel. And now what I want to do is export it out into a comma-delimited text file. The first thing I need to do to start making that conversion is to save it as a CSV file. And what CSV stands for is comma-separated values. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my file, and then I'm going to do a save as. And I'm going to save this file in the Toolbox Import Files folder that I made specifically for the manipulated data files that I'm going to get ready for importing into the Toolbox. So I'm going to find that folder. It's on my desktop. So here it is, Toolbox Import Files. And I'm going to give it a name of converted site S46 _ meteorological. And now I don't want to save it as an Excel workbook. I want to save it as a CSV file. So in the Save As Type box, I need to change this by clicking on the down arrow button and finding CSV. So here it is, CSV, comma delimited. So I select that by clicking on it, and then I click Save. So I haven't seen this message before. I'm not sure what's going on here, but this is what it's telling me to do to fix this. It says to click the File tab, so let's try that. Oh, you can't do it while this message box is open, so I'm going to write down these notes for myself and see if I can fix this. So I'll click OK, and let's try clicking File, and then Options, and then it says the Trust Center, so I'll go to Trust Center. Trust Center Settings. And it says to disable the file block settings. Let's go to file block settings and see if I can do anything. It tells me I'm supposed to disable the registry policy settings. And I'm not seeing anything here. Disabling this. I'm going to clear this checkbox for text files that's under save and see if that does anything for me. And click OK. And OK on this, and let's give it a try again. So I'm saving it as a CSV file again on the desktop in the Toolbox Import Files folder. And let's give it a CSV file here. And now let's click Save and see if that did anything. Well, looky here. Got it. So that was the fix. So now I come up with this box that says some features in your workbook might be lost if you save it as a CSV file. That's perfectly okay. And I want to keep using this format, so I click yes. And now we have a CSV file. Hurrah! So now I need to convert the file from a CSV file into a text file. And before I can do that, I need to close the file. So I click on this X button to close this Excel, which is now a CSV file. And I get this text box that says, do you want to save your changes? This is a little bit confusing. So if I say I save, I go into this loop that never seems to end of boxes that come up that keep asking me if I want to save. So when you get this box that says, do you want to save your changes? You say don't save. Because remember, we just saved it as a CSV file. So we don't need to save it again. So let's say don't save. And now I'm going to go into my Toolbox Import Files. And look, I have my CSV file here. So all I need to do to convert this from a CSV file into a text file is change the file name extension from .csv to .txt. So I'm going to right click on the file, select rename, and again it only highlights the first part of the file name and not the extension. So I want to just highlight the extension and make sure I don't get that little dot in the highlight. So CSV is now highlighted, and I can just type over TXT and then press enter on my keyboard. And it says, are you sure you want to do this? Again, yes I do. I know what I'm doing here. So click yes. And now we have a text file. So I'm going to open up this new comma delimited text file that I just made and take a look at it. And it looks good. Notice the columns are now separated by commas. And I'm just going to close it for now because what's confusing is I have two S46 meteorological data files here. And since I know my converted file is a comma delimited text file, that I've done all that work in Excel on that, I can go ahead and delete this one because I'm done with it. The only reason I'm deleting this one is because I have a copy of the original file from the analyzer for sure in my other folder. So I can get rid of this one so I don't get confused about what is the one I want to be working on. So I'm just going to click the delete key and it's going to send it to the recycle bin. So now I can begin my manipulation in this converted comma delimited text file. So I'm going to double click on it to open it. And since it's now a comma delimited text file, I can check off item 1 in my checklist. So I'll go ahead and do that. And now the next thing I need to do, according to my list, is I need to change the precipitation value in the first row from a 0 to a 0.0. And as I mentioned before, this is commonly seen with precipitation data. If I don't put a 0.0 here, it doesn't understand that there might be other values in this column that are decimal. So if I leave it as a 0, it treats everything as an integer in this column. So if I have like something way down here that's 0.94, the toolbox treats that as an integer and automatically assigns it a 0. So if I had another record with a value of 1.1, the toolbox only recognizes the 1, and it just assigns it a value of 1. So you want to make sure you do this, or else your precipitation data is going to be messed up. So I click to the right of the 0, and I enter the decimal point, and then I enter another 0. So now I can check off number 6 in my checklist because my precipitation value is shown as 0.0 instead of just 0 in that first row of data. So I'll go ahead and check off that. And the next thing I need to do is I need to know how many records are in this file. Remember, if you can't see the status bar on the bottom of the screen here, go into View and make sure that the status bar is active. And if it's not, then you want to disable word wrap, and that will make the status bar selectable. So I'm going to scroll to the bottom and I'm going to click in that last row of data, and that tells me that there's 337 lines of data in this file. And we know that that first row is the column header row, and we don't count that. Our actual rows of data is 337 minus 1, so that gives you a total of 336 records. So I would log that number in my database logbook. I also like to record the first date and time and the last date and time of my data file in my database logbook. So I'm going to scroll up to find out what that first date and time is. And I only have serial dates in this file. So I'm going to record that my first date was serial date 220 at 8 o'clock, and my last date was serial date 234 at 7 o'clock. I also record from my sampler manual that these are start times, and what that means is that the period at 8 o'clock represents 8 to 9, and the period here at 7 o'clock represents 7 to 8 because these are start times. I also record in my database logbook the units of my metadata, and that's actually in the column headers. So my wind speed is in miles per hour, my precipitation is inches, percent relative humidity doesn't have units because it's a percent, and temperature is in degrees Fahrenheit. So now I can check off item 7 because I have the known number of records logged in my database logbook. So check that off. And all that remains unchecked, let's just make sure, is item 9, and that's that the file needs to be saved in the Tribal Data Toolbox _ version 3.0 folder. And since I'm not ready to import this just yet, I'm going to wait on that. So now I can save the file by going to File, Save, and then I can close it. And that file is now ready to move into my Tribal Data Toolbox folder and import into the toolbox when I rename it new import.txt.